Hey, Larken Rose here. Kind of related to my last two videos and a lot of other videos I've done. I wanted to do a quick video about the concept of civil disobedience. And I'm going to start this with a story. In 2003, my home was violently raided by a bunch of mindless, armed asshole thugs of the IRS. Now, took me a year and a half to get their search warrant unsealed. Because what a search warrant is supposed to show is, here's evidence of some nasty crime, and here's why we have reason to believe that it's in this place, and we need a search warrant to go get it. That's what a legal search warrant is supposed to be. They kept theirs sealed. They wanted it kept secret from the world. It's a public document. It's a court document. Sooner or later, search warrants get unsealed. Took me a year and a half to get the courts to unseal it while a bunch of other stuff was going on, because I knew it wasn't actually a search warrant to find evidence, because they admitted in their own court filings that I hadn't hidden anything about what I was doing. I told the IRS, I stopped filing, here's why. I want to talk about it, let's have a meeting, which we did. And we talked about it, and literally the IRS ended their meetings, and I still have recordings of these, saying, we're not familiar with these sections of regulations, of our regulations that you just quoted. We understand why you think what you think. We're not sure how to answer these questions about our own position. We'll get back to you. And then many, many months later, they got back to me by sending armed thugs to barge into my house and steal all my computers and all that. So the search warrant, which a year and a half after this armed invasion I got unsealed, showed exactly what I thought it would show, which is they didn't even think there was any hidden evidence of a crime, because what would it be? They knew about the business income. They knew what because we went out of our way to tell them ahead of time. So we weren't hiding anything, and they said we weren't hiding anything. Why do you need a search warrant if somebody did something right out in the open and said, I'm doing this, this isn't illegal, but I'm telling you everything about it. I'm actually going out of my way to tell you ahead of time. Anyway, so they did a search and did the whole deal. Now, it wasn't an arrest warrant, and they couldn't make me leave. So I sat on my couch, and my wife and young daughter left for a while, and there's a whole bunch of drama of the evil crap surrounding this, but I just want to tell one tiny piece of the story because it's actually relevant to the whole civil disobedience thing. So they had to make a big deal about, oh, you have guns. Why do you have guns? Why do you have guns? Why do you have an AR-15? And the funny thing is, most of the time I sat there making fun of them and saying, you dumbasses didn't bother to find out anything about me, did you? Do any of you even know what you're here searching for? It's literally nothing. I already told you that, and their warrant showed that later on. But they had to try to, oh, you have guns. Why do you have guns? I had like 2 rifles and a handgun, like maybe a shotgun too. But they had to make a big deal. And they had to like take them outside while there were fascists standing around to like measure them and make sure they are all legal, which they were. But they had to make this show like they were busting some drug kingpin or something. We're going to measure all your legal guns, and then we're going to question you about them. So I said, because I'm allowed to have guns, go fuck yourself. Like, I was not polite to them because they don't deserve it. But a particularly non-polite part was when I got tired of them saying that, and I said, as you know, I have an AR-15 with a 90-round drum that is loaded. I had every right to come to the door and kill every one of you fuckers dead. Every one of you deserve to fucking die for doing an armed invasion of my home, not based on actual evidence, which the warrant proved. It was based on me saying things that A, you know were perfectly legal, and 2, you power-happy shits didn't want me saying. And when the warrant was unsealed, it proved all of that. And I said that to their faces. I had every right to kill all of you fuckers, but I didn't come to the door with a gun. I let you come in without killing you, so maybe shut the fuck up about my guns. Guess what they did? They shut the fuck up about my guns. Then they rummaged around, stole a bunch of stuff, rummaged around, hoped to find evidence of who knows what, given that what the search warrant was about, which was like not filing. Yeah, I told you I wasn't filing. And you had income. Yeah, I told you what our business was. I went out of my way to tell you that ahead of time. So the point of that is, that's sort of like civil disobedience. I didn't kill all of you evil assholes. You did an armed invasion of my home, completely unjustified, completely illegal. You're just power happy assholes who didn't like what I was saying out loud. I was absolutely justified in killing you, but I didn't. Didn't even go for the gun. Absolutely had time to. Absolutely could have killed all those bumbling morons, but I didn't. Didn't harm a hair on a head. Now, some people would say, well, you should have. Well, it wouldn't have gone well for me. Would it have been justified? It wouldn't have gone well for them either. Would it have been justified morally? Yeah. Would it have caused a complete disaster for my family? Yeah, so I didn't. So, why do I bring that up in a discussion about civil disobedience? Because civil disobedience can show up as two very, very different things. One is pathetic, and one is actually legitimate and can be useful. And they can actually look pretty similar if you're not clear on what's going on and what the people involved are doing. This has to do with mindset, like I just talked about. If you have the mindset of, oh, the master passed this rule, I'm going to go disobey it. I'm going to go like stand in front of the Capitol and disobey something, and then let them beat me up and take my punishment because, of course, I broke the law, so I deserve to be punished. This is just my way of showing I don't like the rule and I want the master to change the rule. If that's your mentality, your civil disobedience is less than worthless, because all you're doing is volunteering to let the master make an example of you. And then you're basically legitimizing your own victimization by going, well, I broke the law, so yeah, take me away. I'll bravely be in prison because of course they have the right to, kidnap me and imprison me because I broke their rules. But this is how I express myself while bowing to the master. That's one mentality. The other mentality is, you assholes have more guns than I do right now, so I'm going to disobey and let you be violent assholes in the hopes that other people watching can see, wow, you're violent, illegitimate assholes. You're the bad guys. And even though he had the right to forcibly resist, he didn't. And like I said, that can end up looking very similar. Like Gandhi did the thing in India of, let's all go get our salt from the ocean, like the British control freak dumbasses say we're not allowed to anymore. They passed a law or an edict or whatever the hell they called it. We're going to go to the ocean and get our salt like we always did in defiance of them. And when they come to beat the hell out of us for breaking the law, we're going to let them beat the hell out of us. We're not going to fight back. And then more of us are going to come and get salt from the ocean. And there was just lines stretching as far as the eye could see. And no, I'm not even commenting on what I think of the tactic or anything. I'm just using this as an example. So they did that, and their hope was eventually even the thugs of the British Empire have to think, why are we just beating the crap out of people getting salt? And obviously it's not going to work. If it was 2 or 3 people, we could beat them up and put them in a cage and that would scare the rest. They're not getting scared. They're just coming, and they're not even fighting us. They're not resisting. They're not showing up with weapons. They're showing up, getting salt, getting beat up. And then the next one comes, and literally too many came for the British to beat up. They ran out of the energy to beat up people who weren't resisting and gave up. And so that's an act of civil disobedience. Now, do I know what was in the mind of every single person involved in that? No. I mean, not even all the way clear what was in the mind of Gandhi. Because Gandhi did say, if your choices are resist violently or don't resist at all, resist violently. Like, don't be a coward. Don't be a coward and hide your pacifism, hide your cowardice behind the label pacifism. And by the way, pacifism comes from the root meaning peace, not meaning passive, even though it sounds like it should be referring to being passive, and it isn't really that. It's PAC from the Latin or Greek root meaning peace. Anyway, the point is, it isn't, and he talked about being passive. It's like, we're not being passive. We're actively going right in front of them, disobeying and getting beat up. So hopefully the people around us and their enforcers will all recognize who the bad guy is and stop supporting these bastards. So I'm not pretending to know the mindset, but imagine if this didn't happen, but imagine if they had all showed up and say, by the way, we all had guns. Well, they didn't, but imagine they did and said, we all had guns and we all came here without them to see if you're going to beat us all up. Just know we could have killed all of you. We could have showed up with, 2 or 3 people with guns, kill a few of you. I bet you're going to leave and then we can get our salt and you'll leave us in peace. But instead we showed up without them to see just how big a bunch of power-happy assholes you are and see just how far you'll go as mindless order followers. That would have been one thing. On the other side of the spectrum, again, this didn't happen. If they had showed up and said, we totally recognize your right to beat the crap out of us. Obviously, we're bad people for getting salt from the sea the way we have for more generations than we can count. Suddenly, that's bad and immoral because some British control freak declared it to be against his arbitrary rules. So we know we're totally bad for doing this, and we totally deserve to get beat up and punished by your mindless thugs. So we're so sorry, but we're going to disobey, and you can beat us up, and we'll accept that as legitimate and good and righteous. And you're still the good guys. You're still our brave men and women in law enforcement, just doing your job and following orders. So that, again, neither of those is what happened. But those are the two mindsets. If people disobey with the attitude of, we could have disobeyed and forcibly resisted, we have every right, but we'd like to try to break this authoritarian bullshit without things getting that nasty, if at all possible. Good. I like that. But if somebody does it accepting as legitimate and valid and moral the punishment they get from disobeying bogus dictates of authoritarian psychos, you're only reinforcing the belief in authority. So once again, it boils down to, do you believe they have the right to rule you? In other words, do you view them as authority? Because that's what authority means. People have the right to rule. And therefore, the other people have an obligation to obey. If you act as if you are morally obligated to obey, that's friggin' pathetic. And your civil disobedience is just begging the master, I'm not going to pick cotton that long, and then you're going to whip me, and I'm so sorry, master. You had the right to whip me. I didn't do as I was told. Just, ew, what a gross, disgusting, anti-freedom mentality. But if the attitude is, well, we could have kicked your asses, but we didn't, which makes you extra sucky, you power-happy pieces of shit, that's actually consistent, even though it's not resisting, even though it's allowing immoral aggression. And that's what happened when I was raided by the IRS 22 years ago. I chose not to have a shootout with those evil bastards. Now, obviously, partly that was for the sake of my family. But also, even if it was just me, even if I knew I could get away with it, the fucking morons who work for the IRS, stupid enough to do an armed invasion of somebody's house without finding out who they are or why it's happening. And I know that because I asked them when I was there. They were rummaging through my house for 8 hours. And I said, what do you even think you're looking for? Like, who do you think I am and what do you think I did that you're looking for evidence for? And they're like, sheepish fucking cowards. Like, you're the armed invaders in my house and you don't have the balls to say why, you cowardly little shits. Anyway, that's beside the point. But I didn't talk to them as a rightful authority. I talked to them as what they are, thugs. But even those stupid, mindless thugs, I would rather them not die for being stupid, mindless thugs. Now, there are some lines where if somebody tries to cross it, yeah, you're going to die. If you're trying to, like, steal my kids or force somebody to join the military, like a forced draft, or disarm everybody and my neighbors. Yeah, there are lines at which I'm going to kill you. Like the amount which I wish you, the stupid authoritarian thug, I even wish you to not have to go through pain and suffering or death. At some point, there are limits to that. But the point is, a lot of times people can disobey and not give any credence or apparent legitimacy to the thugs doing it. We're going to go here, you're evil assholes if you try to enforce it. And sometimes it can just be a bunch of us are just not going to do what you said. Like, if we're going to do a shutdown because, there's this common cold virus, everyone's supposed to be totally scared, and you all have to wear masks, and you're not allowed to go anywhere, everybody hide in their houses. If enough people go outside and go, yeah, we're not doing that, and the enforcers look and go, look how many there are, the people outside don't need guns. They don't even need to threaten them. It's just, we're not going along with this. Are you really going to escalate this in this situation against normal people living their lives? Now, some mindless thugs would and did. Some thugs of the state, like in Arizona, were like, we don't really want to do that. We're not going to, no. And so you had, like I've talked about before, you had sheriffs basically telling governors, we're not doing this shit. This is stupid. It's unconstitutional. It's going to put us in danger at some point, because at some point we're going to try to push somebody around who doesn't civilly disobey. They uncivilly disobey and blow our stinking heads off for being fascist dumbasses. So yeah, we don't really want to do that. And so a number of sheriffs, and it happened in Texas, it happened in a number of different states and different places where sheriffs said, we're not doing that crap. We're not inflicting that on the people. And a certain amount of civil disobedience can do that, especially if the enforcers really, really, really want to think of themselves as the good guy. We're here to protect and serve the people. Okay, politician just told you to go harass the people for no good reason. And if all the people come out and say, yeah, we're going to do this anyway. I think I told the story before, so we'll do a short version. There were... up around Sedona, some of the coolest hikes in the world. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of liberals and shit in Sedona, but whatever. Lots of state worshiping. But we were driving up there during the stupid COVID circus, and there were big signs saying the trailheads are closed because COVID. Like, the level of stupidity. Anyway, probably everybody watching knows how colossally stupid it is to say the outdoors are closed because of COVID. Like, no matter what you think about anything, that is colossally stupid. Actually, it's evil. It's not just stupid. Be that as it may, there were big signs on the way up saying the trailheads are closed in Sedona. We're like, well, we'll find somewhere to park and go for a walk anyway. So we drive at Cathedral Rock, is this huge, glorious orange rock among many, but it's a really cool one, in Sedona, and there's a little parking place. And we're driving towards it, and there's a big sign by the side of the road, trailhead closed. And there's a guy who's, I don't think he was police, he was probably like park something or other, like making sure the sign is working. I'm like, oh, you bastards. But we drove a little bit further, the parking lot was completely full, and people were just going for walks. Like, the parking is closed. No, it's not. It was literally a full parking lot, and people just happily... there weren't shootouts. Nobody was beating the crap out of the guy looking at the sign thinking, like, I'm not going to tell any of these people what they can do, but I'll make sure the sign is working, so I'm doing my job. Kind of, sort of, not really. So that was a perfect example of civil disobedience. And I bet if you asked those people, they didn't even think of it as civil disobedience. They thought of it as just, fuck you. You don't get to tell me whether I can go for a walk in nature, you dumbasses. Bye. And then there's people off happily walking and hiking up and down in the mountain in this glorious place. And so we did too. I think there was like one open parking space. So we went to and wandered around and came back. Nobody got in trouble. Because the expression of the mentality of we don't give a shit what you think can come out as civil disobedience. Like nobody was yelling at the guy or protesting or having shootouts or anything. They're just disobeying. And so many were disobeying that like, the hell are they going to do? And that was like one trailhead parking. That was probably true of 57 other places people park around Sedona and go for hikes. That was just the one we went to. People are just like, yeah, screw you. Yeah, we can see. It's hard to miss the sign. The sign is as big as the road, and you drive right past it a couple hundred feet before the parking lot. Screw you. We don't care what you think. And, Milgram experiment reference, if somebody's coming in, oh, it's closed, and they look at the parking lot and go, there's 57 other people here. It's not closed. Screw you. Then suddenly normal people are capable of the mentality of disobeying bullshit authority. Never mind that bullshit authority is redundant, because all authority is bullshit. But then they can say, oh, other people are doing it. Okay, well, screw that. You can make sure your sign's working while we all ignore it and go for a glorious hike in this cool place, which people did. Nobody got in trouble and they didn't do anything. That was an act of civil disobedience, but I bet none of those people thought of it as that while they were doing it. What they thought of it as is, we're going for a walk like we always do. Some weird dumbass said we're not supposed to, but I don't care, none of these people care, so whatever. That's a mentality that actually does some good. The we have no obligation. Like, none of those people went for a walk and then came back and turned themselves in. Lock me up, officer. I went on a path in nature without your permission. I guarantee nobody did that. Like, no, you don't get to punish us for this. And good luck trying. There's a gazillion of us. And one guy by a sign, like, trying to pretend he's not noticing 87 people driving past him and parking and going for walks. But the mentality is key, and the mentality, of course, comes from the belief. If people believe in an obligation to obey authority, and they disobey a particular thing, but then, like, humbly accept punishment as if it's legitimate and just, and, well, I sat at the back of the bus, so of course I deserve to be put in a cage or whatever. Like, that's pathetic. No, you don't deserve to be put in a cage. If it's, I sat at the back of the bus or I disobeyed something and I'm going to let you bastards show what a bunch of bastards you are so the whole world can watch and go, oh, yeah, they're kind of a bunch of bastards. Okay, different mentality, different outcome. That can actually be very useful. I'm still glad I didn't have a shootout with the IRS in 2003. I'm even glad for their sakes. The dumbass is doing an armed invasion of a stranger's house and they don't even know why. I'm even glad those people didn't get killed, because I value their lives way more than they value anybody's freedom. It's a tad ironic. So I'm still glad. And I went along. I did self-surrender to prison so as to not get a warrant and them chasing me around. Because, okay, if I'm going to be in a cage this long, I'll do the calculations, figure it out. Yeah, I'll be in there writing books they don't like for 15 months. Then I'll come out and do more stuff they don't like for the rest of my life. There would have been some, if it was like, well, there's life in prison for misdemeanor failure to file, because that's what it was. They finally got me on a misdemeanor. That was it. Not tax evasion, not any felony, literally a misdemeanor. You didn't send pieces of paper to the IRS. So we raided you and terrorized you and harassed your neighbors and harassed the people who work for you, harassed the people you work for, demonized the hell out of you in every way we could think of, and then got you on a misdemeanor, stuck you in a cage for 15 months. I had every right to say, yeah, I'm not coming in. I'm going to forcibly resist. You don't have the right to kidnap me. I have the right to kill all of you if you try to kidnap me, for literally not sending a piece of paper to a bureaucrat. Not even the green pieces of paper called money. Not even that. It's like, you didn't send in a piece of paper with numbers on it. Yeah, I told you I wasn't going to, and I explained why. And you guys said, well, we understand what you're saying. We'll have to get back to you. They never tried to collect, by the way, in between. They just sort of went into limbo for years, and then they raided me. So again, it's all about the mentality. If people talk and think and act as if they have an obligation to obey authority, yeah, you're not helping. You're just reinforcing the entire problem, which is the belief in authority. Even if sometimes you disobey and let them beat you up. But if you understand that you own yourself, you're not beholden to some political parasites, then disobeying, even if you let them victimize you to a certain degree, If that message is clear and that philosophy is clear, like I had the right to kill you bastards for doing this, but I didn't. Because I try to have hope even for you dumbasses who would do something like this. That can still be consistent and useful. And in a lot of ways, way more pleasant. Because if you get enough people who don't recognize the bogus superstition of authority, it's really easy to disobey out of existence lots of stupid laws and taxes without anyone getting hurt. And I've talked about this a million times. If 10 million people, 50 million people in the US said, yeah, we're tired of the corrupt BS and the warmongering, we're just not giving you our money anymore. And we'll find ways to trade. We'll find employers who say, yeah, I'm not going to rob you on their behalf anymore. Okay, we're going to do that. And there's 50 million of us, so we don't have to like come have a revolution and overthrow you. We're just not obeying you. Maybe don't try to escalate it because it may go very badly for you. That, in that case, civil disobedience can break all sorts of things. And there's also sort of the in-betweens, like what happened at the standoff after the Bundy Ranch thing, where they're like, well, we're going to have a show of force by the feds. And 100 and I forget how many people showed up with guns. It's like, no, you're not. And there wasn't a shootout. Now, not sure how many people would call that civil disobedience because they showed up with guns with the obvious intent of if you try to do this by force, we are going to stop you by force. But it ended without a shootout precisely because the feds realized, okay, if we escalate this here and now, it's going to get really bad. Now, they did absolutely evil crap later on, prosecuting people one at a time like terrorists do, murdering Lavoy Finicum, evil assholes, and Kash Patel gave them a reward for being evil, violent, murderous assholes. Thanks, Mago Mussolini. But that standoff was a fine example of nobody got shot. I mean, right there and then. Later, the feds murdered people and arrested people and prosecuted one at a time when they could get them isolated instead of together. But when they were together, the feds were just like, maybe we need to leave. Because they knew if they escalated it then, it wouldn't be the people on those bridge. It would be thousands and thousands and thousands more. I probably would have been one of them. Okay, if you kill 100 people on a bridge who are getting in your way, it's time that you all die. And they knew there'd be a number of people who would think that way and act that way, which is why they backed off. If they can be made to back off without even the threat of violence, just a bunch of people saying, we're going for a walk on this lovely day, get stuffed if you think we're not allowed to. Bye. When a bunch of people do that, that's unenforceable. And that's why I'm going to end on this. I've said it a bunch of times. If a few people resist, it's going to get nasty and the thugs are going to try to make an example of them. If a few people understand self-ownership. If pretty many, but still a tiny minority of the population understand self-ownership, things might get nasty because the ruling class might try to make an example of them and they might decide to forcibly resist. So the scale of violence is, it might get nasty, but then it goes back down really quick because if millions of people stopping acting like we have an obligation to obey these bastards, stop acting as if they have the right to rule us and just disobey, the threat of violence pretty quickly drops to nothing. Because the control freaks know they don't have the resources. They've never had the resources to violently dominate a significant percentage of the population. If a significant percentage of the population says we're not going along with this and actually follows through, even unarmed and without force, without even the threat of force, any authoritarian crap can fall apart. So it's a numbers game. That's why instead of dying in a shootout, well, with the IRS, they all would have died. I would have killed them there. Then there would have been a standoff. I would have eventually died. So wouldn't have gone well for me, would not have gone well for them. But I'm very glad that didn't happen. I'm glad I let them immorally invade my home, as evil as that was, those evil pieces of shit, instead of killing them all. And what I'm doing today, talking about this stuff, my goal is still to break the back of authoritarian bullshit, left and right, without having to have shootouts and crap. And that's why I focus on people escaping the superstition of authority, because if you get enough people to do that, you don't need a revolution. You don't need to go overthrow anybody. You need a bunch of people to go, we're not your slaves, get stuffed. We're not giving you money anymore. We're not doing what you say anymore. And look how many of us there are. Do you really want to pick a fight with 10 million people who right now are being perfectly nice to you? But if you attack us, some of us are not going to be very nice in response to that. That's the sort of civil disobedience that's actually legitimate and useful, and that I will see in my lifetime, unless I get Clintoned or suicided by Mango Mussolini's stooges. Before then, because it is happening, it's still spreading despite their stupid clown show. And the beauty is, the more people who don't view themselves as the rightful slaves of rightful masters, the less you have to do anything about it. And eventually you just ignore the psychos and they can't do anything, because all that went away because the people who matter, which is the general population, doesn't believe in that shit anymore. At that point, they don't even need to resist forcibly, even though that would be justified. In fact, they don't even really need to resist. We're going to go do civil disobedience. They don't even have to think of it that way. Kind of like the people in Sedona. They just thought of it as, I'm going for a walk here. I always go for a walk here. Get stuffed. When enough people just live their lives and ignore the psychopaths, it goes, you can end literally any authoritarian empire by a big enough percentage of the population just saying, we don't care what you think. And nothing else, just that. So that's the goal. That's what I'm aiming for. In the meantime, power-happy control freaks tend to get violent. And some people are going to defend themselves by force. And there are lines which I'm one of those people. Haven't gotten to one yet, as demonstrated by the fact that I'm still here talking. But there are those lines, and people can decide where the line is for themselves. But what really matters is, do you believe you are the rightful subject of a legitimate authority that has the right to demand tribute from you and control every aspect of your life? Because if you believe that, the main problem you should be concerned about is not the evil assholes in DC or state governments or assholes with badges. The main thing you should be worried about is that you still hold the belief that gives them all their power. So maybe work on that first. And when you've given up statism, then realize, wow, the problem still isn't the thugs. It's all the people around me still infected by statism. Get enough of them to give it up, and every authoritarian empire will fall without a shot being fired.